Imagine spending hours, or more likely paying someone to spend hours, carefully crafting a jar of artisan strawberry jam, slapping a handwritten label on it, wrapping it in the fanciest ribbon money can buy, and sending it off to your old friend as a peace offering. A wholesome, delicious, hey, I still think about you kind of gesture. Now imagine that friend sending it right back. No phone call, no thank you note, just returned, like a bad check. That, ladies and gentlemen, is allegedly exactly what happened between Meghan Markle and her former Suits co-star, Patrick J. Adams, and the internet has absolutely not recovered. Welcome back to Celebrity Watchgist, the only channel brave enough to unwrap Hollywood drama one scandalous layer at a time. Quick favor before we dive all the way in. If you're loving this, hit that subscribe button right now. Over 92% of viewers haven't yet. It's free, takes a second, and means the world to us. Thanks. And if you already did, you are a legend. Now back to the show. So let's set the scene, because context is everything here. Meghan Markle and Patrick J. Adams were not just co-workers. These two were close, like really close. On Suits, Adams played Mike Ross, the charming, brilliant, slightly too good-looking legal prodigy, and Meghan played Rachel Zane, the sharp and stylish paralegal who stole his heart. Their on-screen chemistry was electric, and off-screen they genuinely had what appeared to be a solid friendship. Patrick even attended the royal wedding back in 2018, which, let's be honest, was not a small deal. That was a globally televised, once-in-a-lifetime event. You don't just show up to that if you don't genuinely care about the person. But somewhere between the fairy tale wedding and the Duke and Duchess of Sussex's dramatic exit from the royal family, things got a little complicated. Now here's where the jam enters the picture. And yes, we are absolutely treating this jam as a character in its own right because it deserves that respect. Meghan Markle, as many of you know, launched her lifestyle brand American Riviera Orchard in early 2024, and one of the brand's most talked about debut products was a limited edition strawberry jam. She sent jars to a carefully curated list of celebrity friends and influencers. Think Mindy Kaling, Tracee Ellis Ross, and a handful of other high-profile names. The move was smart, strategic, and very Meghan. Warm on the surface, calculated underneath. Classic lifestyle brand energy. The jars reportedly went out to friends and collaborators as a soft introduction to the brand. No price tag, no store shelves, just exclusivity wrapped in a ribbon. And the recipients? They gushed. Social media lit up with glowing reviews and elegant unboxing content. It was a marketing masterstroke, honestly. But not everyone was gushing. Sources close to the situation, and in Hollywood there are always sources close to the situation, began whispering that Patrick J. Adams was not exactly thrilled to be on the receiving end of this particular gesture. And allegedly, the jar didn't stay on his shelf for very long. Now, to be fair, Patrick has not gone on record and said, I sent the jam back. There's been no press conference, no dramatic Instagram post with a jam jar and a red X through it. But the rumors are loud, the timing is suspicious, and the tea is absolutely scalding. Because here's the thing. Patrick J. Adams has not been quiet about his complicated feelings toward Meghan in recent years. In fact, let's rewind to 2023, when Adams gave a candid interview where he expressed a sense of distance from his former co-star. He talked about the way the Suits cast had drifted apart following Meghan's royal marriage and her subsequent departure from the show. He wasn't cruel about it, but he wasn't glowing either. There was a coolness there, a we were close once and now we're not energy that was impossible to miss. And that, friends, is the backstory behind the jam. This wasn't just a jar of strawberries and pectin. This was Meghan extending an olive branch, or rather a strawberry branch, to someone who had publicly suggested that their friendship had cooled significantly. So what does Patrick allegedly do? He sends it back. And if that's true, that is one of the most eloquent, passive-aggressive moves in modern celebrity history. No drama, no argument, no messy public statement, just, here is your jam back, ma'am. We're done here. And Meghan? Word is she was not pleased, not even a little, because when you were Meghan Markle, Duchess of Sussex, Netflix star, podcast host, lifestyle brand founder, and arguably the most talked about woman on the planet, you don't expect your peace offering to be returned like an unwanted Amazon package. That stings. That stings on a cellular level. But let's pump the brakes for a second and ask the bigger question here. Why does this matter? Because on the surface, it sounds like a very expensive, very dramatic argument between two people who used to be friends. But underneath it, there's a whole narrative playing out about Meghan Markle's relationships with her past, with the people who knew her before the palace, before Netflix, before everything. There's a pattern that critics and observers have pointed to again and again. The idea that Meghan's inner circle has shrunk considerably since her ascent to global fame. Old friends have gone quiet, co-stars have kept their distance, and every time someone from her pre-royal life steps back, it adds another brushstroke to a portrait that her critics are only too happy to paint. Now, supporters of Meghan will rightfully say, people drift apart, fame changes relationships, and not everyone who creates distance is doing so because of something Meghan did wrong. That's a fair point. Life is complicated, friendships are complicated, and being the most scrutinized woman in the world doesn't exactly make maintaining normal friendships a walk in the park. But Patrick J. Adams returning that jam, if true, is not a neutral act. That's a statement. That's someone who had access to the circle, who sat in the front row of her wedding, who spent years building a genuine bond with her, saying, "No, thank you." And that is not something you can just quietly spin away. Here's where it gets even more interesting. American Riviera Orchard, Meghan's brand, has had a rocky road since its initial buzz. The jam launch generated enormous press coverage, but actual products have been slow to reach consumers. And some critics have questioned whether the brand has the staying power to match its splashy debut. In that context, a high-profile rejection from a former close friend, even a silent one, is more than just personal. It's optics. It's the kind of story that has legs because it feeds into the larger conversation about whether Meghan's carefully constructed image of warmth, connection, and authenticity actually holds up under scrutiny. A lifestyle brand built on the idea of curated joy and personal connection cannot afford to have its founder's jam returned by an old friend. That is not a vibe. That is the opposite of a vibe. And Patrick J. Adams? He has largely stayed above the fray publicly. He's back on screens, beloved by the Suits fandom that has absolutely exploded thanks to the Netflix revival era, and he appears to be doing just fine without any jam on his countertop. He's playing the long game, quiet, dignified, and utterly unbothered. Which, if you know anything about drama, is the most devastating move of all. Nothing drives someone like Meghan Markle more up the wall than being met with calm, total indifference. The return jam is not just a return jam. It is a message, loud, clear, and strawberry flavored. So where does this leave us? We have Meghan allegedly furious. We have Patrick allegedly unbothered. We have a jar of artisan jam somewhere in the middle, caught between two people who used to mean a great deal to each other, and now apparently can't even share a pantry shelf. Hollywood is wild, people. Truly spectacularly wild. Whether this is the end of any chance of reconciliation between the two former co-stars, only time will tell. But one thing is certain. The next time Meghan Markle sends someone a jar of jam, she will very likely be checking that guest list twice. Thank you so much for watching. We genuinely appreciate every single one of you. See you in the next one.